Hey, it is good today to be here with my friend, Conrad Abraham. Man, on some of my podcasts and on some of my YouTube videos, I've been talking a little bit about the role of AI. And Conrad, you have been designing something that I think is going to be a really big help to worship leaders, something called WorshipTeam.ai. In fact, you want to write that down and check that out. But Conrad, great to chat with you today. Can you tell us a little bit about what WorshipTeam.ai is and the problems that it's seeking to solve and how you came up with that idea?
Yes. Thanks, Travis. Thanks for having me on. So WorshipTeam.ai initially started off as a big idea with plenty of AI, but I slowly scaled it down in order to launch it. But the goal is to not and people get scared when worship and AI are in the same sentence, right? So the hope is to the hope is to not take away the hard work, right? Is to not take away the sweat from worship leaders. I think they should still sweat in the kingdom, still pray, do all of that, and not any of the hard work. But it's the grunt work, right? It's the typing, the thing, and it's all of that grunt work, right? Is to fill that gap, So AI can be that assistant, and for the worship leader, right? So that's the plan, and that's where it's going. I'm leading up to, but for now, it's just solving a very simple problem of just connecting the local church with the local worship leader or the person who has a free Sunday and is willing to help, and he's unaware of the church in his street that's just starved of musicians or the talent that he
Right.
could be helping, right? And in that process, we'll bring in AI to probably help better match those people up and say,
Okay.
hey, church, are you starving for a bassist? Guess what? There's Travis just down the street who's willing to help, but you don't know each other, right? Say hello.
Right.
And right, yes. So in that sense, AI I think is a great use. I don't like AI to steal my hard work, to put it, right. But yeah, that's what
Okay.
it is
So
at a very simple level.
So basically, connecting available musicians in a region or an area
Yeah,
with
yeah,
churches that are looking, to contract musicians. And man, having been a worship pastor for the last 25 years, there have been so many seasons where I have spent so much time on the phone. Hey, do you know so and so? Typing emails, trying to find people that might be able to fill in. And so it sounds like Worship Team AI answers that question. It's connecting people with churches.
yes. I think of it in two ways, right? One is and there's no right or wrong way, right? It's just perspective. One is
Mhm.
I think it's not necessarily a mission for a worship leader or worship team or to go and help out another church, but I think it can be, right? You could go there.
Sure.
I think it's more of a cultural exchange because sometimes if I go to my church and I think, oh, I think Jesus listens to Hillsong, right? And that's what's going to be sung in heaven, right? But you just go down the street and people look a whole lot different. The age range is a whole lot different, right? And they sing, and it's beautiful to see that. It's beautiful to see that and experience that. So that's one way. Another way is the church is generally just starved of musicians, and they're willing to pay, to help those. So if you're willing to pay, or you just want a cultural exchange, so those are two groups of people and two perspectives you can have. So yes, you can either just go and hire someone and say, or you want to do a cultural exchange. I guess the cultural exchange can be initiated from the user, but if it's paid, I guess most likely the church is going to initiate that.
So tell me, Conrad, what's your background and how did you become interested specifically in applying AI to worship ministry? Where does that come from?
Both. I was always into tech. My first job when I was not a Christian, I went to a church and I saw the presentations, and I went up to the pastor and pretty much told him like his whole thing sucked, and he laughed and he said, "Well, you want to fix it, right?" Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Um, I said sure, and I got a job, and then I experienced Christ, and I became a Christian in that church. I accepted Christ in that church because of my I now got into that culture, right? So I was being a musician. I was in the worship band. I was part of the Vineyard for a long time. I think I still am, but then but I grew in my tech as well. I worked with a lot of startups in Silicon Valley. A lot of like Speechify, Play AI,
Okay.
a lot of
Wow.
text to speech. Yeah, yeah, a lot of pretty big startups. I've helped them. So, and I thought and it's always been on my heart to meld those two, or at least just do something for the worship community, or something that I think that's my calling. And I think melding those two is kind of perfect. And I had some time to work on that. So I took it upon myself to really invest some time and do it right.
That's awesome. So what are some of the features that, you think that worship leaders should be aware? I know you're gonna give us a little bit of a tutorial in a second, but even before you get into that, what are some of the features that are currently existing with Worship Team AI? And what are some of the features that you hope to add later that should grab the attention of worship leaders?
Yeah, so think of it. I hate to say this, but it's the only reference point, right? It's sort of like LinkedIn, right? But LinkedIn is great for hiring business, and a resume, and it's kind of boring, right? But if you're hiring a guitarist, right, you want a blend of something like a gig salad and a LinkedIn, right? You want references,
Right.
you want demo reels, right? So WorshipTeam.ai helps the musicians or the talent. It's more than just musicians. It could be sound tech, lighting tech, right? So the
Okay.
features are you can just log in, create an account, and set up your demo reels, your profile page, and really show who you are and not
Mhm.
tell who you are, right?
Mm.
Then you can also collect reviews from like character reviews from your pastor. You're right. You can set up your home church and say, "Hey, I'm part of a home church, and this is my worship leader and my pastor." So you really want to. It helps the other churches who want to hire you. They can easily vet you and see, do you have a home church? What does your pastor think of you? What does your worship leader think of you? So the features for the musicians are really creating a profile page that kind of shows your heart and your skill, right?
That's
And
great.
what do people say about you? And for churches, it's very easy to just search by zip code, or by city or state, and find very specific skills. Like I'm looking for an acoustic guitarist in my zip code, and it'll show you all the people who play
Wow.
acoustic guitar in your zip
This
code,
is a
right?
tool that I wish
Ye-
existed years ago because this is incredible that I could find musicians that way. And I love what you said about having a profile, where there can be, references because, as a worship pastor, I don't want to put just anybody on the platform. I want
Yep,
them to have borrowed credential from an endorsement from a pastor or from other people that they've worked with. So I love that. Well, why don't you share your screen and give us a little bit of a demo and show us how Worship Team AI works?
amazing. I'll share an image, and I think that's kind of like the birth of the idea, even.
Okay.
Um, so you can see my screen, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you heard of the term like food deserts, right? And because in some parts of the country there's like no food, there's just no Walmart, right? And I think the same thing is with churches, right? Like if that's my home church, and all my surrounding churches that I pass on the way to my church are probably starving. There's a desert, right? They don't have talent. The church that I help out every now and then, when I play on a Sunday, 3 out of 6 people are helping out on a Sunday morning.
Hmm.
Yeah, so there are plenty of churches that are just starving. So this was the pared down idea. How do we solve this problem, right? How do we introduce church to bassist? How do we introduce bassist to this church,
Right.
instead of just one way, right? It's both ways. They can meet each other. So
Right. It's like a two-way street. It's musicians looking for
y-
opportunities to play, but it's also
yeah,
churches looking for musicians. I see what you're saying there.
yeah, and it's a very simplified version. It's not like the traditional job board. It's not a job board really. It's more of a social
Mhm.
connection between churches and talent. You know,
Mhm. That's great.
Yeah. So this is the homepage. As you can see, these are all real people. Like it's producers who are here. Vocal coaches. So it's more than just, obviously the vocal coaches are worship leaders as well, but it's
Mhm.
more than just filling a role on Sunday. Um, um, yeah. So if you go to the homepage, it really tells you like the two users. One is the user, one is the church, but all you have to do is click join roster if you're a user, right? If you're a
Okay.
church, you click see roster. If you're a musician or talent and you want to be part of the roster, join roster. It goes to this page and it just basically tells you all the benefits and what you get. And there's an image again. And let me click on my profile. You can create a profile that looks as amazing as mine. um, right.
With
Um,
5.0 reviews. He's my
yeah,
guy.
I'm your guy. And as you can see, right, it says over here what instruments I play, what are my capabilities. Now in the back end, you can select more. My capabilities are limited. So if you have more capabilities, it'll show up over here. These are all the roles that I can fill in as well. As you can see, it's not just for Sunday morning. Um, a little bit about me, my demo reel, and some other media, so you can quickly vet. And I have a review from Vine Band, Mike O'Brien. Uh,
Nice.
he's a
5
really
stars.
trusted. Yes. If I wasn't his friend, I'm sure I would still get 5 stars. But and then you can follow me on social media or share this and check it out.
Okay,
So
so
that's
you can kinda do some vetting not only by what you're seeing and what they put on their profile, but you can also look at their social media, which I think is helpful. What
yes.
Conrad, what do you recommend for a demo reel? What should that be demonstrating to prospective churches?
Yeah, I think it should have two things. As my profile is geared towards electric guitar, so it should show chops, right? Whatever it is, right? But I think it should also have a short intro to say, introduce yourself and say, hey, this is who I am. These are my beliefs. This is the church I go to. So a little bit of quick heart vetting and then skill vetting as well.
Mm,
I think that really, because that's however you would introduce yourself to the pastor, or when he says like, hey, right, I would love to tell me a little bit about you. I'd love for you to come and
mhm.
help out at my church. Then over here you can see it has my home church,
Okay.
right, and it also has all my gear that I have, so you can tell a lot
That's wonderful. Yeah, by the
by
gear that they
the.
use.
Yeah, exactly. And then a photo gallery. This is just for musicians to put up the photos of them playing on. It's kind of nice to see the environment you play in. What kind of church are you playing? A mega church? Do you play in a small church? So I think this profile page has a lot of data points that can build a picture or a framework in your mind within like a minute, and you can quickly think, make a decision. Right? Is this my guy or not my guy? And because I can't book myself, let's just use right. I can easily just click. Okay, I want now. The church can just initiate a booking directly. Like this is like a Booksy or whatever, right? You want to book a barber, you can just
Mhm.
book and then start the conversation, and everything is done. If you're paying, its payment is handled on site. If you're not paying, mention that in the booking, and if both agree, then that's cool. But
Where
yeah,
if you have a rate that you set, is that can you put that somewhere? Do you put that in your bio, or is that on another
yes.
screen?
Yeah, I'm glad we talked about that because I just found the bug. Yes, you can put the rate, and it's hidden over here. Typical range from, I'm not sure if you can see it,
Yes, I can
but
see that, yep.
that'll be fixed right after we're done talking.
Okay, so there would be a numerical range. So, for instance,
Yes.
if you're a church and you're saying my budget for a weekend is $125 for, 2 services, you obviously, can you look at profiles that are organized by how much people cost so you can actually filter out the people that you may not be able to afford? Is that possible
It,
yet?
it will be added. It'll be pushed later on today, but in the search roster page, you can have all your instruments, your city, and zip code. And I will add the price range. But you can see even here in the search filter, you can search for people who have a home church. So that also should just filter out a lot of people who don't have a home church. And yeah, but definitely price range is a good idea for sure, and it's coming.
And where would I see, a pastor's referral or a person's referral? Can you show that to me again on a profile? Because that, as a worship pastor, is something that I'm definitely going to be wanting to look for. Where would I look for? Would that be under reviews?
Yeah, it would be under reviews, but it would probably have the role as well because churches have because we do have pastors also here and they belong to a church, just like our musicians have a home church. A pastor is associated with a church, just like LinkedIn, right? When they write a review saying this person and this person served together at this church and what's their role in that church.
Got it. So their role would be identified so that I'm not reading just any review, but I'm seeing that, no,
Exactly,
this was reviewed by an actual senior pastor that's worked with this candidate.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Incredible. Incredible. Wow. Very, very simple, very easy to find. Can you show us the main page again? Like if I'm starting from scratch, what would it look like if I'm a church looking for a candidate?
Yeah. So it's very simple. You just go to WorshipTeam.ai, and right here we have the branching buttons. You can see see roster, and the churches can do that and just search by instruments, whatever instrument they want, and they have roles and capabilities here as well. You
Oh,
know, I'm
I
looking for
see.
a
Okay.
bass teacher. So at the very top, it has all the instruments you can search for that, and it's I think I
Do I
have it
have to
all.
do I have to search
Mhm.
just for one instrument or can I search for multiple instruments?
You can search for multiple, so you
I
can just keep
see.
adding
Okay.
in. Yeah, yeah,
Different
you
fields.
can. Yeah. So there are two ways, right? So you can just search and enter a zip code. I'm not sure if there are pipe organists in Atlanta that are on here yet, but I think I might have chosen the wrong thing. But that's one way to do it. The second way is to post an opportunity, which is kind of the little bit more traditional, but still not the old school job
Okay.
uh, thing, right? And then you can attract more people to apply for your gig.
Okay. So basically these are now postings. And can you walk us through like how a church would go ahead and post an opportunity?
Yeah. So if you go to opportunities, and there's a whole dashboard as well, and we can get into that. But if you click add opportunity, now you're going to go into my profile, which is going to have a whole lot of churches that I'm associated with. But I'll just select one. So now I'm within the because I was part of multiple churches. You just have to kind of choose your church that you want to post the opportunity in. You click new opportunity, and it's very very easy. It just kind of walks you through step by step. Right? Is it a one off? It meaning
I
I just
see.
want you on a Sunday morning. Is it a part time? Is it a full time? Or is it internship? Right?
Okay, so that this could be, this is not only a job board just for the last minute, I need someone for a Sunday. It can look a lot of
Exactly.
different ways. It could be a full-time ongoing thing.
Exactly, because it's the place where it's the marketplace where churches it's the meeting place where churches and the talent are hanging out, right? So I want to build multiple points of connection, right? It can be just a one-off, find person, click book, done, or do I want to post like long term? Even looking for a worship leader, long full time worship leader, right? You could also do that in this
Mhm.
get, and you can manage the whole thing within the app.
That's great. So you just mentioned the app. Is that something that's downloadable for the phone?
No, when I say app, it's a web app. So Android
Web-based, okay.
and iOS is coming soon. Yeah.
Coming soon. Okay, something to look forward to. You mentioned the dashboard. Is there anything else on the dashboard that you wanna go over while we're here?
Yeah, so the dashboard again is very very simple, right? You can manage your team. So once you sign up, if you're a worship leader or anybody in the team, you can invite and you build your church. So think of everybody belongs to a church. You sign up, you can operate individually, or you can just create your church, and then you can. It's just like LinkedIn. Then you can say, okay, we are all part of this church. We are because if you go to a church, you can see then who all is part of that church on the front end. If you're a pastor, you're clicking on my account, you go to my church and you say, oh, I know Mike. Is Mike part of the same church? And you can talk to Mike separately, right? So you can build your team. Um, you can invite your team, manage your team. Here's your opportunities, your roster, and your billing is for how you're going to pay people when you hire them, or and how you're going to receive payments when you get paid as well. And then one other, yeah.
I was just gonna ask, like, in terms of your business model, do you take a percentage from every interaction that happens through your website?
Yeah, so the whole thing is free to use. The business model is only a percentage when somebody gets paid.
Okay.
And it's only 5%. You know, like I did a lot of research, like things like Patreon and other transactional sites like
Mhm.
that and Upwork take about 12%, I think, on on top of the transactional fees, which is another 2.5%. So people end up losing like 15% on every transaction, but I take only 5% of every payment that's handled uh,
Okay.
on the site, plus the bank fees, which is like I think 2%.
Okay. That's great. That's great. And, the website is called Worship AI. What is the integration of AI into all of this? Or is that something that's coming down the road?
Yes, it is coming down the road. So how to find better matches, right? It's
Mhm.
almost so there won't be a form like right now. You have to like use a form, right? And it'll be more conversational. Help me find a bassist who has experience playing contemporary music, or or a jazz pianist who's great at hymns in my zip code, and then it'll show you a whole lot of matches. So it can be very, very conversational AI, as opposed to using forms to find stuff.
That's fantastic. That is so great, Conrad. So, tell me a little bit now about the future and your vision for this. Is this live now, just in the Atlanta area where you're based, or where? Like, what zip codes are represented currently in your database? How far-reaching is this? Where do people have profiles? Is it just United States only, and what regions are represented currently?
Yeah, I think mostly United States. It's only because of the billing, but I think we can expand that for sure. And it's easier to stay focused if we just stick to one country. But it's
Hmm.
open for all across the U.S. for sure. And I have profiles from across I think Minnesota, all the way to Florida, and people are signing
Okay,
up. Yeah.
that's incredible. And what are the
Yeah.
most active regions currently?
I think because I'm from Atlanta, I reached out to a lot of people, so Atlanta is kind of winning that race right now. But yes, but Florida as well.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your screen there and giving us a little bit of an overview of how this works, because I know this is going to be a very interesting website for a lot of worship leaders to check out. Just as we wrap up a little bit, Conrad, what is in the future for WorshipTeam.ai? What are you most excited about in terms of how it will help worship teams in the future, and what different features might roll out in the months and years to come?
Yeah, great question. A lot of it was already built, but hidden, just
Okay.
for us launch, so the launch could be easier. But yes, so if you think of churches and musicians or talent, right? Not just musicians, but hanging out in the same place, right? What are the needs? What is a musician's need? Because
Hmm.
we all have our helixes, we all have our gear. We are looking for tone, so slowly integrating a marketplace, like even going as far as reverb, right? Reverb, where I know musicians sell a whole lot of gear. We're trading gear, right? So
Right.
so you know so a marketplace for musicians to easily. And I think I always want to keep it missional. My goal is to follow the, I think, is bombers or whatever, the sock, right? Is to maybe give gear to third world countries, or countries that are starving of gear, right?
Hmm.
Maybe a delay or a pedal, right? How can we make it missional, right? But we have to grow into that. But kind of organizing a place where church and musicians hang out, and the peripheral needs are also met in that same place.
That's so great. As we wrap up today, Conrad, why don't you give your best elevator pitch for what WorshipTeam.ai is, and why any worship leader watching this or listening to this should check it out today?
Yeah, it's very easy. WorshipTeam.ai is just connecting the church with the talented and vetted roster. The people that's missing on Sunday morning, or you're struggling to find, are on WorshipTeam.ai. So come find them.
I love that. Come find them. Conrad, thank you so much for your time, man. This has been great learning about this. I wish you all the best. And this is something that I'm definitely going to be sharing with some of the worship leaders that I'm discipling, just to be aware of this new technology so that they can find the people and the talent that they need for their services. Thank you, brother.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Travis. See you.
You're welcome.
That was